One foggy morning, Marcus was fishing when he saw something strange in the water. It was a boat that people in town had talked about for years, one that had disappeared 20 years ago and never been found. Marcus felt scared but curious at the same time as he got closer to check it out. When he looked inside the old boat, his face went completely white from shock at what he discovered. At first, Marcus told himself, "This can't be real," not wanting to believe that the ship had just shown up again after all these years. But as he slowly moved toward it, he knew he was wrong. The closer he got to the ship, the more he knew he had to get on board. He couldn't just leave without taking a look inside. Marcus thought about calling the police, but he knew they would tell him where the ship was and order him to stay away from it. He didn't like that idea at all. Later, he would wish he had made a different choice. "I found it, so I should be the first to see what's inside," Marcus said to himself. He was already thinking about the newspaper story. Local fisherman makes amazing discovery, and how this would help his fishing business. He had no clue what was waiting for him inside that ship. Marcus had so many questions running through his head. What had happened to this ship 20 years ago? Why couldn't anyone find it until now? He wondered if he would find any answers, but just the thought of exploring a missing ship was exciting enough. He looked for the best place to tie up his boat, and after sailing almost all the way around the ship, he finally saw a ladder. This was his chance. He looked up and felt a little scared by how big the ship was, but he wasn't going to let fear stop him. Marcus took a deep breath and pulled himself up to the next step of the ladder. He carefully climbed up, still not knowing about the terrible thing he was about to find inside. He had heard so many awful stories about what might have happened to the ship and its crew. He let out a long breath as he finally made it over the side of the ship and stepped onto the deck. Where should he look first? He walked around a bit and tried to open the first door he came to. He held his breath as he pushed the handle, but the door wouldn't open. It was locked. Marcus found this odd, but it didn't worry him much. The ship was huge, and he was actually excited to explore it. Soon, though, his excitement would turn into fear. Marcus walked to the next door and smiled when this one opened. He went inside and ran his hand along the wall looking for a light switch. He flipped the switch several times, but nothing happened. "Well, it would have been strange if it actually worked, I guess," he whispered as he looked around the space he was now in. Marcus looked around the dark room, his eyes taking in the ordinary things, chairs, tables, and boxes. Everything looked like it hadn't been touched by time, but it was strangely normal. It was just a room full of old furniture and forgotten supplies. When he realized the room was just for storage, he felt disappointed. The mystery of the long-lost ship seemed to be getting less interesting with each boring discovery. Marcus sighed, closed his eyes for a moment, then decided to leave the room. Since there was nothing interesting here, he left to continue exploring other parts of the ship. His footsteps echoed through the empty hallways as he went from room to room, opening doors and looking inside. Each one showed more ordinary scenes. Nothing so far gave any clues about the ship's mysterious past. Marcus opened several more doors on this level, and each one showed nothing more than the last. He didn't know that the exciting part was yet to come, hidden away from where he was looking. While checking out another boring room, Marcus was startled by a loud metal screeching sound from outside. It broke the silence suddenly, making him jump. His heart started racing as he wondered if there might be another person on the ship with him. He gripped the door handle tightly, his other hand made into a fist at his side. Marcus took a deep breath, getting ready to face whatever was outside that had disturbed the eerie quiet of the ship. Walking carefully, Marcus moved toward the door, looking outside, expecting to face whoever or whatever made the noise. His footsteps echoed on the metal floors as he made his way up to the first floor where the guest rooms were. Feeling uneasy, Marcus went up to the first floor where the guest rooms were. He stopped, took a breath, and kept going, his curiosity pushing him deeper into the forgotten lives of the people who had been on the ship. When he opened a room door, Marcus gasped at what he saw. The first real sign that people had once lived here. The room looked like it had been left in a hurry, a coffee cup on a side table, a book lying open face down. As he walked through the hallways, his mind was full of questions about why they had disappeared so suddenly. What could make an entire ship's crew leave like this? He wondered what could have caused such a quick escape. When Marcus entered a room on the next floor, he saw something that made all the color drain from his face. The room was different from the others, its contents disturbingly well preserved. Personal belongings were scattered around as if their owners might come back at any moment. Marcus's eyes went wide with shock, his breath catching in his throat. For a moment he stood frozen, hand pressed over his mouth to stop himself from screaming, his heart pounding hard. "Oh my God, what is this place?" he whispered, backing toward the door. He burst onto the deck, gasping for air, planning to leave right away, but then he saw that his boat was no longer there. The rope he had tied was hanging loose on the dock. The end looked like it had been cut. Panic set in as he realized what this meant. Someone else must be on the ship with him. "No, no, no, this can't be happening," Marcus shouted, looking around frantically. Terrified and alone, he regretted his decision to explore the ship. Now, trapped with no clear way to escape, he stepped back from the edge, his mind spinning with fear. Every sound could be a threat, every shadow a hiding place for this unseen person. Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. Desperate to get off the ship, Marcus decided to look for a way to communicate or find another way out. He hurried through the corridors, his eyes searching for anything that looked like a radio room or lifeboats. Each empty room he passed seemed to mock him with its silence. With determination, he headed toward the upper deck, hoping the captain's room might have a working radio. The captain's cabin was his next hope for communication, until a door that had been locked before caught his attention. Now, mysteriously, it was slightly open. Marcus stopped, his hand hovering over the handle, curious despite the bad feeling in his stomach. With a careful push, he opened it more, looking into the shadowy room beyond. The musty smell of old paper and rusty metal came out. As Marcus looked inside, ready to turn back, something unexpected happened that quickly trapped him in the mysterious room. The door slammed shut with a loud bang, the sound echoing ominously in the small space. He rushed to the door, pulling at the handle, but it wouldn't move. Marcus's heart raced as he realized how serious his situation was. Now, locked inside with no obvious way out, a chill went up his spine and he backed away slowly. "Help! Somebody help me!" he yelled, but his voice just bounced off the metal walls, coming back to him as if to mock his desperate cries. Accepting his situation, Marcus tried to calm down and look for another way out. Realizing he was trapped in the laundry room, his eyes searched desperately for an exit until he spotted another door. A bit of hope in his terrible situation. This door was smaller, almost hidden behind a large, rusty washing machine. He reached for the handle, his hands shaking with the possibility of freedom. Marcus approached the door, praying it would open. He turned the handle slowly, holding his breath in anticipation. The door creaked open, showing a narrow passage dimly lit by the flickering light of an old bulb. Relief washed over him as the door led to the service corridor, a path that might lead to safety. The narrow, poorly lit hallway stretched in front of him, its walls lined with pipes and cables. Despite how gloomy it was, it promised a way out, and Marcus didn't waste any time. He started down the corridor, his footsteps echoing off the metal floors. Ignoring how creepy the empty corridor was, Marcus ran, driven by his desire to escape and forget the horror he had seen. His breathing came in short, sharp bursts as he sped past closed doors and abandoned service carts. Each shadow seemed to move, making his heart pound harder, but he kept going. The image of what he thought was a dead body in the guest room haunted him, erasing any desire for adventure, replaced by a need to survive. As he ran, the horrible sight played in his mind over and over, pushing him to move faster. His only focus now was finding a way off the ship. His mind racing with fear and desperation, Marcus's eyes looked at every exit sign, every hatch that might lead to the upper decks or lifeboats. He couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, hunted even. Exhausted and defeated, Marcus collapsed, allowing himself a moment of despair. Convinced his adventure had turned into a nightmare, he slid down against a cold metal wall, his head in his hands, breathing heavily as he caught his breath. Just as he began to lose hope, a sudden sound of a door and the glimpse of a figure through the sunlight snapped Marcus back to reality. He jerked upright, his eyes wide as he spotted the outline of a man in the bright light. Marcus's heart raced and he scrambled to his feet. Marcus prepared for the worst and screamed, "No, please don't hurt me. I won't tell anyone," thinking the figure was going to kill him. His voice echoed down the corridor, a desperate plea filled with terror. He cowered, his arms raised to protect himself, eyes squeezed shut. Marcus's fear turned to amazement as the figure, who he thought had been lying dead and naked in the room, turned out to be very much alive. The man chuckled, a deep and hearty sound that filled the corridor as he stepped into the light, fully dressed and completely harmless. "Whoa there, friend. I'm not going to hurt you," the man said with a warm smile. "I'm Nathan. You just startled me when I heard all that yelling." Relief and confusion washed over Marcus as the figure introduced himself, destroying Marcus's worst fears with a simple explanation. He had just been taking a nap. "You were sleeping?" Marcus asked, his voice shaky with disbelief. "That's right," Nathan replied with a laugh. "I guess I must have looked pretty scary lying there. Sorry about that." Marcus's knees nearly buckled with relief as the tension drained from his body. The absurdity of the situation briefly overwhelmed him, and he let out a shaky laugh. Nathan shared the ship's story. A storm had left them lost and cut off from the world, unable to return. As he told about the events that led to the abandonment of the ship, Marcus listened carefully, his fear replaced by fascination. Laughter replaced fear as the misunderstanding was cleared up, and Marcus listened intently to the tale of survival and secrecy. Nathan, with a smile, began telling about the days that turned into years. He gestured around the ship as he spoke, each area holding a part of their story. "So, what really happened here?" Marcus asked, still trying to understand. Nathan explained that the ship had gotten lost in a storm, and its communication system had broken down. Unable to call for help, the passengers and crew had to make a crucial decision. "The waves were as tall as buildings," Nathan said, leaning against a rail, his eyes distant as he described the towering waves and howling winds that had sealed their fate. "We thought we were going to die out there." The passengers had decided to live in isolation since they had enough food on board, and they didn't want to return home yet. Marcus blinked in surprise, his mind struggling to imagine choosing such a life. You chose to stay lost? Marcus asked in disbelief. It sounds crazy, I know, Nathan replied. But some of us weren't ready to go back to our old lives. This place became our sanctuary. Nathan walked him through the ship, showing storage rooms still stocked with supplies, their longevity proof of the group's determination to remain cut off from the world. As some of the passengers decided to leave the ship, they still promised to keep their secret. Nathan's voice grew soft as he spoke of friends leaving one by one, each leaving an empty space behind, yet they had all kept their promise. And now it's just you? Marcus asked. Was just me, Nathan corrected. Until you showed up. I've been the last one left on the ship, and now it's time for me to leave as well. He looked at the sea through a porthole, his expression a mixture of relief and sadness. It's time to end this chapter, he said, turning to Marcus. His readiness to share their story marked the end of their isolation and the beginning of a new chapter. Nathan's willingness to share their story marked the end of their isolation. Together, they prepared the ship for one last voyage, a return to the world they had left behind. Nathan got Marcus's boat back, and together they set course for the shore, their spirits lifted by a sense of completion. Your boat's been floating nearby this whole time, Nathan explained as they prepared to leave. I tied it up safely when I saw you board. Together, they returned to shore, after Nathan returned Marcus's boat to him. Their stories soon captured the imagination and attention of the wider world. As they stepped onto solid ground, the fresh sea breeze was no longer a reminder of isolation but of freedom. They shared their story with every listening ear, the tale spreading like wildfire, starting discussions and curiosity far and wide. The story of survival and secrecy aboard the ship became a sensation, pushing Marcus and Nathan into unexpected fame. Reporters and onlookers gathered, hanging on to every word of their incredible experience. As their faces appeared across media outlets, they became symbols of strength and adventure, their lives forever changed. The mysterious ship, once a legend, now stood as proof of human strength and the power of community. As it was anchored for the last time, people from near and far came to see the vessel that had housed a unique tale of survival. As Marcus and Nathan dealt with their newfound fame, they thought about the adventure that had brought them together. Forever connected by their shared experience, they often found themselves retelling the days aboard the ship, each memory a building block in their friendship. Who would have thought a morning of fishing would lead to all this? Marcus said, shaking his head in wonder. Life has a funny way of surprising us, Nathan replied with a grin. Together, they looked forward to whatever life might bring next, knowing they had a story worth telling and a friendship that could withstand even the strangest trials. Did you enjoy this story? What would you have done if you were Marcus? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries happen when we follow our curiosity. Just be ready for what you might find. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.